It was a scene we'll never forget, the harrowing effort to evacuate tens of thousands of civilians in the final days of the war in Afghanistan. Our guest was there through it all and is just one of a handful of recipients of a prestigious award for her bravery and service to country. Let's welcome Captain Rhea McFarland, C-17 pilot, 14th Airlift Squadron. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So you've just received the Distinguished Flying Cross, and this was for Operation Allies Refuge. Tell us what those days were like.
Those days were long, so 17 days, and then as for my crew, we were actually out there for about 21-ish. So, you know, we got the call, and then having to kind of focus and cage our emotions, and essentially we flew out, we got stationed into the deed, and then we were waiting, and we were really just feeling a range of emotions, a little bit of hypeness, just ready to execute and ready to help and execute the mission.
I mean, what do you think for the civilians who were on board those flights, what that experience was like to once the tires lifted off the tarmac and onto a new life?
Absolutely, it was hard.
Yeah.
Their journey not only started leaving Afghanistan, but having to endure, 3.5 hours being on a plane. It was cold, and then landing in. For myself, what I can speak to, landing back in Qatar, it was hot. Like, yeah. We don't mention that. It was, 100+ degrees. And then it was an environment in which we all had to work with in terms of just like difficulty, challenging circumstances, and then waiting around for hours, and just because people had jobs to do and we were all working the best of our ability, but they had to sit through all that, and then lines of waiting to get into the country. They endured a lot,
and some who never got on the plane.
Yes.
And about how many people were on a single flight, would you say?
It would range. For my crew, it was upper 300s, and so you would see 300 to 500 civilians on a jet.
Well, they were packed in like sardines, and you were saying that people had to make room to try to pack in more. So really, yes. It was just a mission to try to fill those planes with as many lives as possible.
Exactly.
And for you as the pilot, you're on a mission, so you have one goal in mind. Mm-hmm. The feeling of landing there, was there fear? Was there fear of the Taliban? Was there fear that another war could break out while you were stationed there? It
was, I would say, a weird circumstance, for lack of a better word. We were entering new territory and just trying to be flexible with the circumstances that would arise. It was no longer like a training event. This was the Air Force and Air Mobility Command calling on pilots, load masters, crew chiefs to execute and evacuate as many people as possible, which it ended up being 124,000.
Gosh, and to see each plane lifting off and flying off into the sky, you just couldn't even breathe. You were just hoping that flight just reached an altitude and was just far away from all of that it had left behind.
Sure.
For young people who are watching this, who are inspired by your story, where would you encourage them to start and to view the military as a potential future for them? I
think it starts with maybe looking at who is in their life, someone who inspires them, and just asking that question, like, what can I do to be in that place? Anyone who approaches me and asks, what does it take to, be a pilot or be in the Air Force? I say, have you started with a recruiter? Have you heard of the Air Force Academy? Just starting with that question and giving an answer that hopefully can lead someone down the right path. It sounds daunting.
It sounds daunting. Oh, I want to join the Air Force. I mean, it takes a lot of brains. It takes a lot of courage to take those first few steps. You certainly have done it. Did you come from a line of military men and women, or are you the first in your family to join the military?
So my dad, he was in the Navy, and then my stepdad, he was in the Air Force, and they were in, before I really could comprehend, but they are just so proud, and it's special that I can have moments like this and be able to share it with them because they can truly understand.
Well, we certainly appreciate you sharing your story with us, and I don't think I could ever see a C-17 in the same way as I have seen it in Afghanistan and the work that you did to bring those people to safe harbor. So thank you so much, Captain, for joining us, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
We're back in 2 minutes.